Today, I'm joined by James Hidden, former managing director at Ogilvy and a seasoned account management veteran in the creative world. This episode peels back the layers on what it really means to manage high-profile accounts in an agency environment where art meets data and deadlines are tight. In our conversation, James shares his insights into the unique demands of account management in creative settings, from acting as a liaison between ambitious clients and creative teams to balancing project management and strategic oversight. We dive into the evolving landscape of client relationships, the shift from retainer-based to project-based engagements, and what all this means for the future of account management. I hope you enjoy my conversation with James Hidden. Hey, James, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the Account Management Secrets podcast.
Great to be here, Alex. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. And I'm excited because we're going to talk today about what it means to be an account manager at the creative agency side. And this is, frankly, really interesting. It's one of these things where I've got to tell you, I have not had a lot of experience in. I've done a lot of work with account management teams, but not a whole ton in this particular area. And, there's a lot of mystique around it, like, wow, what are these people doing with these creative agencies, marketing agencies, stuff like that. So I'm really interested to get into it and to understand that in a little bit more detail. So you were managing director at Ogilvy for a while. You've had a lot of experience with some big and well-known brands. But just to kind of orient us here for this discussion, tell us about what does it mean to be an account manager if I'm at a creative agency working for a big brand? What are the ins and outs? What does all that look like on the ground? Just give us kind of a quick orientation here.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. And I love the word mystique. That's it's a nice way of putting it, but a friendly way of putting it. Sometimes it's just beautiful chaos. I'm not quite sure which is better. But the thing I love about working in a creative agency is it's this beautiful marriage of art and science. So yes, there's the science and the rigor behind data and insights and business needs, but ultimately what we do is art. It's creativity. It's subjective, and so a lot of what being a great account leader in a creative agency is operating in the gray. There's no black and white answers. There's no right or wrong, yes or no. We often say that at the agency, you're the voice of the client to the agency and the voice of the agency to the client. So we're diplomats, we're orchestrators, we're figuring out how to thread the needle of client needs and agency ambitions. And that's a hell of a lot of fun, honestly. It's been a great career so far, and I'm excited for what's next.
Yeah, and that intermediary role is something that a lot of account managers play, where, I've got to be the internal evangelist for my customer so that my company understands who's the client, where are they going, what's going on, what are their main drivers, and so on. And so part of my job is to represent them internally. But then, of course, I also represent my company in front of the customer. And this is important when it comes time to things like scope of work and profitability and, relationship management and all that sort of stuff. So I'm always doing both of those. How much of in your world, how much of this gets into the delivery side? Like, do account managers do the delivery themselves? Are they responsible for delivery teams? Is that kind of a different group? What are the lines there?
It's a wonderful question, and I think it's at the heart of a big debate within our discipline right now, is the role of account management versus the role of project management and delivery, as you put it. And different agencies do it different ways. I think a lot of agencies, especially at the junior level, will kind of collapse delivery, project management into account management, and really you're responsible for execution. And it's a great way to learn your trade, learn the fundamentals of the business. I think the reality of what great account leadership is it's more than execution. It's more than delivery. It's navigating that gray, triangulating, the ultimately subjective, as I was saying, challenges of what great creativity looks like, what great brand building looks like, what a client needs, what a brand needs. And the process that we handle in I think a creative agency is a little bit more complex sometimes than more sales-based organizations. To my point about the gray, we sometimes say that the creative agency process looks a little bit like a ski map. If you're a skier, it's up, down, left, right, up down this hill, backwards, upwards, left, and that complexity is challenging, but exciting. And I think your point about delivery is so key, that yes, you have to be fully kind of in the weeds, responsible for execution, but you also have to have that helicopter ability to zoom out to 30,000 feet and understand, okay, what's the big picture? Where should we be going? Where does the client need to be for us to be the best possible partner?
And in your experience at Ogilvy, how big of a portfolio would a typical account director or account manager have? Am I working with a single account on a single project? Is it multiple projects within one customer, or do I maybe even have multiple accounts?
Great question. It'll vary, honestly. If it's a big brand with multiple product lines, multiple campaigns, multiple needs, maybe you're just focused on one singular client. Other clients might have smaller budgets, and so you've got a portfolio of 3, 4, 5. I think one of the great things about working in a creative agency is the diversity of experience and exposure you get. One day you might be handling a brief for a fast food brand. The next you're looking at a beer brand's business needs, and getting that diversity of category experience, of channel experience, of comms experience is, I think, a great opportunity.
I've always kind of wondered myself about what are the clients like at an agency? You think about, I don't know, we've all seen shows like Mad Men. We've all sort of had some general exposure to the idea of you got these creative geniuses running around, generating ideas, and you've got these customers who are very demanding and, very particular and, sometimes very aggressive, but also like huge budgets and all this kind of stuff. Like what are give us a real tangible example of like what some of these client experiences are like.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think we talk sometimes how, we're in the business of making recommendations on the agency side. On the client side, you're in the business of making decisions. And with that comes responsibility, obviously large P&L responsibility often. And, we might be 1/10 of their mental headspace, maybe even less. They're running a P&L, they're running manufacturing, they're running product marketing, they're running a collection of teams. And so we're often the most exciting part of the day in some respects. We bring in the big creative ideas. We have a lot of fun together, but we're also just one small part of their remit and their responsibility. And that's a really important thing to remember, that the mental headspace is limited.
Yeah. So they've got a million things going on. So they're expecting you to show up, be professional, generate ideas, help steer them in the right direction, and then move on. And are your typical engagements? Are they project based, or are these retainer relationships?
That's another kind of tipping point. I feel like the agency industry, is at right now, which is we've been used to this world of large agency of record engagements, guaranteed scopes, annual retainers. And that world is changing, and more clients are moving to project-based models, shorter engagements, having a roster of agencies rather than one big giant partner that they give all their business to. And that's challenging for a creative agency. It keeps you on your toes. The guaranteed revenues, forecasting challenges that come with that. But I think is an exciting opportunity in many regards, in that you get to pitch for more business, work with more clients, and it keeps you on your toes. Ultimately, you're only as good as your last project versus a kind of guaranteed long-term relationship.
Yeah, and in a lot of the conversations I have, when you hear something like that, it actually makes the role of account management seem even more important, right? Because now our job is not only to deliver whatever the initial scope was and make sure the customer's happy, but it's to build relationships, to find new projects. It's to figure out ways to expand or get deeper, or to get back to some of those longer term relationships that we may not have at the moment. And so that's a really big deal. It does change the role of the account managers. And the reason that, we see that coming up, and the reason that this conversation happens is, so many people don't actually know what an account manager does day to day. We just talked about what it means in a creative agency, but just broadly speaking, a lot of people are like, we don't know. But when it comes time to putting it in that business context, right? That's like, hey, we're doing this. We've got these account managers in place so that we can expand with our existing customers. We can keep and deliver on the existing business. And very importantly, so that we can have kind of like an early warning sign on things that are moving well or not, and then figure out what to go do about it. So presumably this is raising the profile for account managers within agencies. What have you seen that mean in terms of the skill sets or the personalities or the type of work that an account manager is needing to do day in, day out?
Yeah, really well said. And I think it gets back to your point around execution and delivery too, which is when you're only focused and solely focused on getting shit done, excuse my French, you don't have that time to take the step back and say, where do we need to be? As you said, the best account leaders, I think, are playing chess. They're 5 moves ahead, not just of the agency of where they need to be from a project base, but where the client needs to be. What's the channel developments that are critically important that we should be testing for next year? What's the campaign opportunity that isn't the brief in front of us, but actually is 2025's opportunity? And if you have the mental headspace as an account person to actually be thinking that way, you'll be a much stronger client partner. And I think too often agencies are honestly asking their account people to do too much with too little these days, and not being, to your point, the thought leader partners to clients that they need to be, which I think then contributes to this kind of commoditization of agency services. I'll just go find a better agency elsewhere, versus these kind of strong, deep, long-term tenured relationships built on trust and partnership and collaboration ultimately.
Yeah, the do more with less like reaction that so many companies have when times get a little bit tough or more difficult, is super unhelpful when we're trying to build long-term relationships. I just want to go deeper on this one point that you were talking about, which is understanding the roadmap for the customer, like a really big deal. And this is true both on this podcast and also what we're seeing in the Amplify community, the account management community that we run, is one of the biggest issues is people don't understand their customers as well as they ought to, right? I simply don't know them well enough. And I know that you've talked about this in terms of the lost art of listening, right? Or like really understanding what the customer is all about. Like, tell us what you mean when you say, hey, we've got this issue with the lost art of listening.
Yeah, thank you. I think it comes back to that classic phrase that I love, which is, 2 ears and 1 mouth in that ratio. And I think too often we get that ratio the wrong way around. I think the very best account leaders have this superpower of triangulation, of understanding what's not being said as well as what is being said, understanding the brief behind the brief, picking up on that seemingly throwaway comment someone made in a meeting that might actually be a massive unlock to how we get past the challenge or sell the creative idea or whatever it might be. And I think the lost art of listening is exactly that. We're too focused on selling, too focused on our points of view, too focused on wanting to make sure we do what we think is right, versus truly listening to ultimately the people who pay the bills and run the budgets and making sure that their needs are heard. At the end of the day, we're all humans, people by people. Our clients are not robots who need to just say yes or no to an idea. And I think we've lost sight sometimes of just truly getting to know our clients as humans. What excites them? What keeps them up at night? What's their creative ambition? What work do they love to see in the world? And again, listening to that, lost art of listening, truly understanding the hopes, dreams, fears, ambitions of the people you're going to work super closely with day in, day out is, I think, absolutely the foundation of being successful.
What sort of guidance and coaching do you give to your teams to help break through the ice there, to help overcome some of these challenges, to really be a client partner, to do that level of listening? Because the reason I ask is it's one of these things that's easy to say, right? Oh, we need to know our clients better, and we need to build stronger relationships. We need to listen more.
Yeah.
And then you've got we'll say early career, mid-career person, they're sitting there in an office or on a Zoom call with a client. Like, how do they actually do this stuff? How do you coach people, James, around, making that work?
I think there's two things I'd probably say, and it's sort of the academic and the kind of ephemeral or philosophical. So academic, I think, is just the foundational, functional aspect of being a sponge, being the most well-read, most well-listened, most intelligent understander of a client's business. That I think is also a lost art, that we're so focused on the brief at hand, the day-to-day, that we don't truly understand the ins and outs of a client's business, the depth of knowledge we need about a consumer. So David Ogilvy, who obviously founded Ogilvy and is one of the sort of gurus of our industry, was obsessed with this. He was obsessed with account people being the most knowledgeable people on the business. Doesn't mean you have to be the smartest person. That's an important distinction. But you should absolutely be the Bible, the knowledge book, the resource for a client. So that's kind of the academic piece of it. The second piece, and this I think is also tied to where we are in the world today with COVID and remote work and the challenges that brings, is I think we really need to get back to FaceTime, in-person time, walking the halls of your clients' offices, water cooler conversations, those kind of impromptu sparks of magic that come from being in person and being together and understanding the broader context versus the more inherently transactional nature of being on a video call, being on a virtual meeting, being in a virtual presentation. So I always coach my teams to really prioritize that, the coffee chat, the one-on-one time, the status meeting in person that provokes another meeting straight after that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And that's a little bit more that philosophical, that softer side of things, but critically important to the role of successful account management.
Yeah, and it highlights a real juxtaposition here in 2024, like you're mentioning, right? Which is there's going to be the side that says, well, we need to be efficient, and I've got a bigger portfolio than ever before, so I've got a million things going on. And by the way, so does my customer. But I mean, I'll tell you this, in my experience, if you want 20% growth from a customer, you can sit on a Zoom call and you can do it that way. If you want 10x growth or 100x growth from a customer, you got to do what you're saying, which is go walk the hallways and go spend time with them. That's when you see all the other things that are going on that you wouldn't otherwise have visibility into. And that's a big deal job, especially at a creative agency.
That's so well said. And you could even kind of equate that to sort of short-term efficiency versus long-term effectiveness. Yeah, short-term, yes, that video call is more efficient. It's a better use of your time in the short term, but it's going to limit the impact versus longer-term investment in effective brand building, relationship building. So I think there's an analogy there with brand building in totality, as well as the relationship side of it as well.
Now, when you hire for your teams, are you hiring specialists? Are you a jack of all trades kind of guy? Like, how do you think about building out the profile for an account manager who's coming to join your team?
I love that question. I think there's, I'm going to answer it in a way that might sound contradictory, but inherently, account people are specialists. They are trained to do a specific job. But what I love about account management is that we are inherently generalists. You use that phrase, jack of all trades, which is a favorite of mine too. And I like to say jack of all trades and master of them all. I think sometimes there's a little bit of a negative aspect attributed to being a generalist. Well, you kind of touch everything, but you're not really great at anything. And for me, I love the fact that we get to touch everything. I love the fact that I'm a wannabe strategist and a wannabe creative, as well as being a client relationship leader. My recent chief creative officer described me as a really good junior copywriter, and I love that. I take that as an absolute compliment. I want to be that person. I want to hire people who have a passion and interest for all aspects of the work, not just the relationship side. The other aspect of generalist versus specialist is, I think sometimes, and I'm curious if you see this in other aspects of the account management world, sometimes I think there's a bias towards category or channel experience. I'm working on a beer brand, therefore I need someone who understands beer, or I'm working primarily in social media, I have to have a social media specialist. I actually think that's the wrong thing to do. I think categories can be learned, but disruptive breakthrough thinking is an innate skill. And I would rather have someone who brings a fresh perspective on the beer category than someone who's kind of conventional and understands the codes and tropes and conventions of a category.
Yeah, the cookie cutter stuff won't always work in this world. And I think that you got to put an element of creativity into it. But but to your point, part of what you're attracting is someone who wants to have a broad spectrum of their work, who wants to be able to see across lots of parts of the business, learn a lot, and then be able to sort of synthesize all that stuff together. And that sounds to me like that's what you really look for in an account manager. Is that skill set or that willingness to do that.
100%. And I think with that becomes the sort of special source of passion, tenacity, ambition. You want people who are willing to go the extra mile to find a solution. I think sometimes tenacity beats creativity. Tenacity beats experience. If you're someone who just won't take no for an answer, will be relentless in trying to find a solution, find a workaround, find a way of making this ad for the budget that seems impossible. That, doggedness, I think, is absolutely one of the strengths that I look for in hiring people.
So is that tenacity over creativity? Does this have to do with the idea of like, I am the client advocate, I'm getting it done no matter what type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, sometimes account management and creative agencies get a bad rap as note takers and custodians, and back in the old days, bag carriers. We used to carry the creative's work, the pieces of paper back when we drew things. We used to carry them to the meeting. And that, is outdated and wrong. We need to be as passionate about getting the work made as our creative partners are, as passionate about this being the right solution for the consumer as our strategist partners are. And I think you've said it before, there's no school that you can go to for account management. There's no book you can read necessarily. And that's fine, because I think we can help, but the special source, special skills of tenacity, willpower, ambition, I think are half the battle, honestly.
This is cool because we're getting a real view into what we might call the dark arts here of creative agency account management, which is super cool. I also have heard you talk about the idea of the power of why as it relates to managing accounts. What do you mean by that? Tell us more.
Yeah, I won't claim any credit for this. I've stolen this one from Toyota, so they've been reasonably successful in their time, But I think it comes back to another one of these sort of soft skills. I think it's dark arts and soft skills. Yes, we have to be really good at the fundamentals of scoping and negotiation and project management delivery, like we've been talking about. But there's soft skills that ultimately will guide how successful you can be. And this one's about curiosity, I think. And the 5 whys, the power of why, is a Toyota management principle that says that you have to keep asking why to get to the root cause of a problem to then diagnose it. And there's a sort of a famous, I'm not sure if you've heard this one, but kind of example there, which is that there's a statue and the statue is kind of crumbling, it's decaying, it's not in good condition. You're like, well, this must be a structural issue. How do we fix that? When you start asking the 5 whys, you get deeper and deeper to a solution to the problem that you might never have got to if you'd just taken it at face value. So, the statue's crumbling because we're using harsh chemicals to clean it. Well, why are we using harsh chemicals? Well, because pigeons are pooping all over the statue. Well, why are pigeons pooping all over the statue? Well, because there's lots of spiders around. Well, why are there spiders? Because there's lots of gnats in the air. Why are there gnats in the air? Well, because ultimately they're attracted to the lights that we turn on around the statue at dusk. Okay, so if we turn the lights on later, then there'll be less pooping, there'll be less spiders, there'll be less gnats, and the statue won't crumble. And it sounds silly almost, that specific example, but I think it's a really good illustration that to be brilliant at your job in account management, you have to keep pushing to get to the real root cause, the real brief behind the brief, the real reason why the clients don't like the work. And that five whys principle I love in training account people to really be relentless in pushing to get to the core of the problem.
Look, I've said many times that curiosity is the number one superpower that account managers need to have. It's part of your day job. It's part of your night job. Go out there, figure out what's going on, learn as much as you can, ask the follow-up questions,
100%.
ask the hard questions, clarify when you don't make assumptions, all that sort of stuff. So this is very, very powerful for us to really get to the root cause. And again, this is the difference for an account manager who's listening here and they're like, yeah, but why should I bother to do this? This is the difference between growing your accounts by 20% and 10xing your accounts, right? Yeah. If you get this right, all sorts of opportunities will open up for you. And you could just stick with the routine, like the normal conventional path. And yes, you'll get a 20% increase, but that's about it.
I couldn't agree more. And I think above and beyond the pure financial return there, I think it also creates long-term partnerships, long-term relationships when a client knows you're really invested in their business. It's not just about short-term growth. It's about those relationships that endure. And when that client ends up in a different organization in 3 years' time and is picking up the phone for a new agency, who are they going to call? And I think that sort of partnership commitment through that curiosity, as you're saying, is fundamental to success.
Now, James, you've written, you wrote some pieces on LinkedIn recently. You talked about how it's so important as an account management leader to build a personal brand, or sort of to brand yourself and the experience that you're providing to your customers, or the promise, so to speak. Tell us about why you decided that you wanted to stake a claim on that and what it means there.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Alex. I think I've had some time to do some self-reflection in recent weeks, and what I've realized is that we are ultimately more than our day jobs, and perhaps that's an obvious realization. But we need fulfillment out of our day jobs, and we need meaning out of our day jobs. We're not just a machine that turns up at work every day, and so in finding that meaning, finding that fulfillment, I think account leaders would be well suited to really question what gets them up in the morning, what drives them, what excites them, what inspires them, what they're good at. Because that not only allows you to sort of define your expertise, define your special skills, define what you're great at, but also allows employers to get the best out of you and teams to perform highly effectively with you. And so, we should always be invested in our careers, in our personal success, not just the success of our company. And I think articulating what you're great at allows you to find that next role, find that next adventure that is best suited to you, that brings you meaning, and that ultimately you'll be successful in.
And so what does that look like? Like, what does that look like for you, for example, or what's behind the framework?
It's a great question, and I'm still doing that self-reflection every day. But what I've come to realize is I like to think I'm a brilliant orchestrator. I'm a big soccer fan. I love the number 6 role, which is this kind of holding midfielder that breaks up the problems before they've become problems and gives the ball off to the talented, skillful attackers that can create beautiful success, great goals. And that duality of being involved at both ends of the pitch, being fully immersed in every part of a high functioning team is what I love to do. And so that allows me to talk to both teams I work with, but also companies to say, like, you need something like this. I'm really good at this. And let's talk about what that might look like down the line. I think the ultimate goal here is to help account leaders, account people, account management really quantify in their own terms what they're good at, what they like to do, and where they will need to be to do that in future. So it's about future-proofing your career, I think.
Yeah, and really establishing like the right fit, for example. But I like the idea of having a philosophy. I like the idea about being very explicit about it. So writing it down, or thinking about it, writing it down, like sharing it with others, because it helps you establish good fit. It also helps you stay energized, right? Because there are going to be days when you don't feel like it. There are going to be days when your clients are being difficult. There are going to be days when all sorts of, stuff is falling from the sky on you. And, you want to be able to have that kind of keep that motivation, right?
100%. It's a job. Jobs aren't easy. But I think kind of defining the DNA that you have and what excites you about what you do allows you to find more of it ultimately. I'll tell a little anecdote here. I had a brilliant ex-client who he had his own philosophy about what great agency client relationships look like. And he had a set of principles. One of those principles was, don't tell me you're excited at the beginning of every creative presentation, because how will I know when you're really excited? And that stuck with me for decades. It was, because we always walk in, to your point, not every day is easy. We always walk in, eyes wide, smiling. We're so excited to share this idea with you today. And it's kind of the boy who cried wolf. Like, why are you always so excited? And so one of the things I've tried to practice as a leader is honesty and transparency, and not be this sort of salesman, snake oil kind of a guy that's always shilling, always selling. I want to make sure that I show true energy and excitement for work through the lens of what's really exciting me versus needing to be this salesman that's always excited.
Yeah. Fair enough. I never thought about that one. That makes perfect sense. Now, from now on, I'm not going to say it on the podcast. I'm not going to say I'm super excited to have you here.
I'm sorry, Alex. I've broken lots of people's dreams when I've recounted that anecdote, because we all do it.
And we do. It's kind of automatic. You want to put that enthusiasm into what you're doing. Your website has this whole philosophy of yours listed on it. FAME, FAME. It hits on many of the leadership points that you were just talking about, but tell us more about the FAME philosophy and why you came up with that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. We love a good mnemonic in advertising. We love a good acronym. So clearly built out of that. But FAME is about famous work, ambition always, modern marketing, and empathetic leadership. And to my point about self-reflection, I felt like I needed to codify what got me going and what I bring to teams. And I think why that's really important, whether you're in the job market or not, is helping people understand what value you bring and what they're getting when they hire you. It goes back to the personal brand conversation we've been having, that we spend all of our time building brands, but we don't spend enough time thinking about our own personal brand, what value we bring to an organization, and what value we therefore have on the market. And, those are the 4 things that get me excited. I want to make brilliant work that people notice, that people talk about, that we don't just have to pump media dollars behind. That's famous work. That's the F. I want to bring ambition always. I want to try new things, be first to market, be pushing the envelope on what our brands and our teams can do for our brands. That's the A, obviously. Modern marketing is about testing and learning and innovation. How do we make sure we're not just employing the same old playbook, but we're really pushing new ideas, new tactics, new innovations for our clients and our agencies? And then empathetic leadership. And I sort of almost feel sad that we have to sort of make that one part of 4 principles. It feels like it should be table stakes, but it's not always. And I really believe in happy teams that are empowered, teams that feel good about what they're doing. And so empathetic leadership as a kind of style of management is kind of that 4th part. And I think when you wrap it all that together, hopefully you get a sense of who you're hiring, who you're buying, what they'll bring to you as an account leader. It doesn't have to be for everyone, but I would rather articulate it and end up in an environment that is a strong fit as a result versus the opposite.
Yeah, I think first, I think this is super cool, and this is almost like a challenge that I want to offer to the listeners. Like, Can you, like James just did, can you encapsulate your philosophy, your promise, your personal promise, and figure out what gets you excited? Write it down, share with your team, share with your boss, maybe even share with your customer. Can you do this in a way and come up with something that really lights you on fire, right? It's just like you get that you're psyched about, and that shows who you are and where you want to go. That'd be the challenge that I would offer to everybody listening here. Have you had your whole teams do this, or did you just come up with this yourself?
I've done it recently, but I've always encouraged people to do it informally, to kind of sketch it, to understand what makes them tick. And I think it's a really helpful team building, succession planning, organizational structure challenge too, because you don't want 6 fame people, on a team, to use my example. You need to build a complementary set of skills. You might want someone who's just uber tenacious to use that example from previously, that will be the absolute obsessive about getting stuff done, getting stuff over the line. That's probably an important skill set you might need in a team. So I think using it from an organizational perspective, departmental perspective, is also really powerful, because then you get a sense of where your talent lies, where there might be gaps, what opportunities that exist as a result.
Yeah, fantastic. So I mean, I think this is a great exercise for anyone to do. Well, James Hidden, thanks so much for coming and joining us today and sharing all these ideas on the dark arts of creative agency account management. Anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Oh, you put me on the spot there, Alex. I love that. All I'd say is, the creative agency world, we've talked about chaos, we've talked about dark arts, we've talked about kind of gray. Those are all arguably sort of negative words, or words with meaning. It's a wonderful world for anyone looking to build their career in account management, or looking to transition from an account management role quite currently. You get the magic of creativity, the foundations of business, and you get no day like the other. Every day is a new challenge, every day is a new opportunity. So if I could end with a rallying cry for the beauty of working in creative agencies, I'll do that.
Awesome, super. Well, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate the time.